Right, we're recording now. Obviously, be aware, everybody, that obviously this is being recorded and other people will be listening in on this at a later point in time. So if you're sharing anything, I ask you to kind of take responsibility for whatever it is you're sharing, knowing that other people will be listening later. So if you're thinking, I really don't want the whole world knowing this, maybe don't share it on this call. So yeah, other things to mention. Right. So yeah, I'm obviously, for those people that don't know, my name's Ryan James. My kind of thing that I run under is We Won't Die Wondering, and I'll share more about that later. And obviously my co-host today is Katie. Say hello, Katie.
Hello.
Hello. And Katie is very much a social media angel. Written a book. Her first book was Social Media for a New Age, and the second one's just gone to print. It's called.
It's Social Media for a New Age too, but it's a digital self-care guide.
There you go. Perfect. So running order, basically, obviously I'm doing the sort of hello, what I would call a Design the Alliance right now, and then we're going to jump in about 5 minutes time or so into an introduction in terms of what We Won't Die Wondering is all about. And get you guys, I'm going to break you up into breakout rooms, so you'll be paired up with someone random for 5 minutes or so, just to introduce yourselves to each other and explore what it is you won't go wandering about in a social media sense. I'm going to bring you back together as a group, and we're going to kind of just list some ideas of what it is you're interested in a social media sense. Not necessarily your absolute critical questions, but what it is, the kind of stuff that interests you about it, what sort of ideas you've got about it. And me and Katie kind of going to general kind of sense of that ourselves. And then I'm going to dive into Katie's 3 learning points, which I already know. The beauty of doing these things is that I kind of get the education prior to everybody else. And then together with that person, we share them with everybody. So I'll be introducing Katie's learning points with you, and I'll share my screen with you. And then me and her will have a 2-way conversation around them, just illuminate. So it's almost like you'd just be listening in on that conversation. But then I'll be putting it back to you. What's your experience, those learning points, and what questions do you have about them specifically? So that's where you can get kind of specific about your own challenges and whatever that you'd like to get from the session. And then of those questions, we're hoping that there'll be 1 or 2 where we kind of think to ourselves, actually, that'd be really good to do a deeper dive on this. And in those deeper dives, it'll be almost like a mini case study Q&A with Katie and whoever's question is most interesting and illuminating that we think is going to cater for all of the questions or most of the questions that people have got. So if you're thinking you want that to be you, make sure your question's absolutely killer. And we'll dive in on that. And then that'll take us to about 5:30. We'll do a bit of a harvest of learning, as I call it. You'll do it in pairs again, back in your breakout groups. Then we'll do it as a whole group, and then we'll wrap up with a few kind of ideas of where you can get more of Katie, more of me, and more of what's coming up with We Won't Die Wondering. So I'm going to assume everyone's cool with that, rather than getting everyone to unmute themselves and say yes. So what I'll say now is turn off your any notifications that might come up. I want you to be here now for the next couple of hours. So I'm going to do likewise when I'm saying this. So turn off any notifications you have on your phones, obviously on your computers, if that's where you're viewing this. Anything that might kind of interrupt you in any particular way, including if it's work colleagues or partners that might suddenly interrupt you and you get completely distracted. Maybe just turn that off now. As I said, I've got everyone muted for good reason. I'll unmute you or I'll unmute you when the opportunity arises. As I said, as I signed you guys up, this session is being provided to you as a gift for free. It's kind of how I've done work a lot for the last 3 or 4 years. But by return, I am asking sort of a donation. I'll explain all of that at the end of the session, so just don't worry about it right now. And then some assumptions I've got for you, which if you're coaches out there, you'll so be used to designing the alliance and assumptions. There's a few things I want to run through. So basically, assume that everybody in this room is what I would call a creator. And by this, I mean both to you yourselves, for yourselves, and also in service of other people. Don't be inclined to advise on other people's questions unless they're actually asking for the advice. So assume that everyone's actually capable, completely capable of helping themselves. I'd ask you to throw yourselves into this. So, this is a space where we can kind of just get curious in service of ourselves and each other, go with the ebb and flow of it. I will be doing likewise. A lot of this I might get wrong, make up as I go along. I kind of ask you to do the same thing. In regard to that, I'd also say that this is a safe space. So no one gets to be wrong in this place. There's no real place for shame, particularly. In fact, I invite you all to ask what you consider to be a stupid question. Because if you're thinking it's stupid, there'll be guaranteed to be somebody else thinking, I'd quite like to know the answer to that question too. So feel free to chip in with those questions. And then other than that, I would just say, as I said before, kind of community is everything. So consider this as we are creating a mini community between us all now. So kind of consider that as we're in this together and we're wanting each other to win and do well out of this. So is there, come back to, I was reading off a bit of a thing. Is there anything that anybody wants to know in addition to that? And if there is, wave your hand at me.
I've got a question.
Oh, go on then.
Well, just I noticed a few people have switched their cameras off. So
Yes,
it's just wanting to know if they still want to take part in the breakout rooms, if there's a reason and various. So I thought I'd just check in.
I am on a required meeting at the same time that will be done in 10 minutes. So I'm like multitasking. I wish I could be here 100%.
Thank you for letting us know, Kristen. That's great. And just, anyone else, just so we're aware for the facilitation aspect.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm assuming that if they're not, then they're going to say as much. Well, one thing to add then on Zoom, whether you use Zoom or otherwise, there's a button at the bottom of your screen. It's called chat. If you're wanting to share any questions or whatever that may come up, if you don't have my attention or whatever else, you can chuck it into chat. And it's not just that me that will be able to respond to chat. I think anyone else can respond to the chat too. So again, we're a community, so you can kind of help each other out with those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if I carry on, next part of this process is just explaining to you why we won't die wandering and where this whole thing came from. I appreciate that all of you, I'm guessing, will be here wanting to know more about social media side of things, but this is very much done under the kind of banner of we won't die wandering. So, as I said right at the beginning, my name's Ryan James. It's easiest to, rather than rewind the whole of my life history, to just kind of go back to sort of 2017. I pretty much had a breakdown of sorts, whether it be a relationship, whether it be job, whether it be life, whatever. Everything just came to a juddering halt. I mentally and emotionally burnt out. That's the simplest way of putting it. Completely lost my mojo, completely lost myself, whatever the hell I am, who I am. And come basically, and to put a bleak sort of story on it, come April 2019, so this year, only just over 7 months ago, I got to a point where I genuinely wanted to end it all, which is quite a sobering thought. I kind of, what I would say, kind of reached the end, as it were. And then a kind of subtle thought hit me. And I say subtle because it wasn't like a divine intervention. It was more like, yeah, why not kind of response. And that was, if I'm genuinely contemplating taking my own life, then all bets are off. And I'm kind of totally into a fuck it state of being. And I kind of said to myself, well, if I were to end it tomorrow, what would I die wondering about today? And that led me on a really interesting kind of journey in the last 7 months. First thing it led me to do was try carrot cake, of all things. I don't know why I'd never tried it, but I did, and it was quite nice. And then it prompted me to take a job as an MD for a small creative agency who are a client of mine. So I thought, well, that'll be the answer. That'll get me going. I lasted about 10 minutes. I thought, definitely not this job. This is awful. I'm not going to die wondering about that. This is not it. This is awful. And then I signed up and did a Buddhist pilgrimage for 10 days. And I loved it. And suddenly I was like, okay, there's something in this. Whether it was just the simple purpose of one foot in front of the other, whether it was I just have to walk. It was the community aspect, it was the nature aspect. And part of me thought, I just want to do more of this. So at that point, I decided I was going to do the Camino de Santiago, which is a big pilgrimage across northern Spain. It's about, I think I did about 1,000 kilometers. I think you can actually do it in about 850. I just chose to take the longer route. but it kind of, even in committing to do the Camino, I'd already got myself into this kind of mindset in the previous choices I'd taken as to, well, you know what? I'm just going to be me. I'm just take me as I am, not at all. I can't be fucked with all the what I should do, what I could do, what I would have done, what somebody else thinks I should do. I kind of just dropped into space and just kind of like, well, this is kind of what I want to do. And I kind of don't really care where it takes me anymore, because I'd gotten to a point of kind of, I guess, the point of no return, really. But it just became liberating. And in doing so, I subsequently kind of almost showed up. I was almost like people sort of say finding themselves. I kind of ended up in this place where I was just like, as I said, sort of take me as I am, not at all. So subsequently then my partner, who I'm now with, who's actually on this call and actually upstairs, who's Tracy, she saw me for the first time and obviously saw her, and she asked me out. I was like, yeah, fuck it. Yeah, why not? Which is great. And obviously we're now living together. So that's a pretty fantastic turn up for the books. And as I was doing the Camino, I still went and did the Camino. And as I was doing it, people kept saying to me, so are you going to go to Santiago? And my response was, well, that's kind of the general direction I'm headed in. But today, this moment in time, I'm not going to die wandering about doing ... So it was either jumping in a river, or it might be 10 o'clock in the morning. I was saying, I'm just going to stop for a beer. People say, really? But you can't have a beer because it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I'd be in the response of, well, fuck it. I don't care. It's what I feel like doing right now. And I kind of, as the course of the Camino unfolded, I realized actually, this is who I am. I realized I started that kind of like fabled idea of living in the moment. That's effectively what I was doing. And it wasn't kind of like something I realized by sitting down and doing hours and hours and hours of meditation. I've been meditating for 15 years and I hadn't realized this. I'd suddenly realized actually my inner tuition is talking to me all the time, and I just hadn't really been listening that often. And now I'd started listening to it and acting upon it. And as I acted upon it, I kind of got more confident about who I was and what I was and so on and so forth. And I had some realizations, and these are I'll share these with you later, but these are my kind of learning points. One of them is just not just live each day as if it's your last, live each moment as if it's your last. So even the realization of just made myself a cup of tea, if I got halfway through this cup of tea and thought, I don't want to drink that cup of tea anymore, then don't. Just, if this were your last day and you didn't want to drink that cup of tea, then don't drink it. And there's something about that when you listen to your intuition, you kind of learn more about what you are and who you are, and you kind of go beyond the sense of what your limiting beliefs are, and you drop into a state of being. So it kind of goes on to my next point, which is just be you in all your messy human glory. So you are already enough. So this notion of, well, I must strive to be more is bollocks in my sense of things. Even all your baggage is a gift. I would say to you, it's kind of who you are, rather than being something you don't want to own up to. I'd rather say it's like something that is you. It's kind of part of your story. It's part of the joy of who you are, and you kind of get to repurpose it. And kind of the last point on this is, which is kind of what feeds us into the social media piece, is everything you do is an opportunity to wake up. So before all of this stuff, all this journey that's been unfolding, I was at the kind of mindset, and Camino is a good example. I'd be walking Camino and I'd get a blister, and I'd be annoyed that I got a blister and thinking my blister's gotten in the way of my Camino. And then it dawned on me, no, actually, this is my body talking to me and telling me to slow down. So rather than this blister getting in the way of my Camino, this blister is my Camino. And I realized that there are no such things as distractions. Nothing is a distraction from anything else. Everything is life. Everything that's happening is happening for you. And if it's happening for you, it's happening to wake you up to more of who you are. Which begs the question then, if everything is an opportunity to connect and go deeper, then what about the stuff that nags at you and annoys you and you think, oh, fucking hell, I got off. And one of the ones for me, obviously this is where it comes into social media piece, is social media. So I know social media is almost something I need to engage with and do if I want to build a brand, an online community, etc. But I also look at social media and think, oh, I can't be fucked to do social media. I don't know how to do it. I just feel like a novice. So at that point, I reached out to Katie and said, what am I missing? And kind of that's what spawned this conversation. And that's really why I'm sort of saying how to build an online community without selling your soul to the devil. I would actually say how to live your life without selling your soul to the devil. And social media is just one of those aspects in which we get to show up. So that's kind of my piece of my story, why it's we won't die wandering. This whole process, well, I won't die wandering. I'm realizing, well, I'm not the only one that won't die wandering. It's the case that we won't die wandering. We are a community. So in spirit of that, in the spirit of we won't die wandering, I'm going to invite you now to just kind of like tune in with yourself, kind of what I would say, a mini meditation. Literally, this is going to be for all of about a minute. I'll switch my screen over. I would ask you just close your eyes wherever you are. Just trust that everybody else is closing their eyes too, except me, purely because I'm kind of leading this thing. Just feel the seat underneath your bum. Feel your feet on the ground. Just put a hand on your heart. Put a hand on your belly. And say to yourself, I'm here. I'm listening. What is it you want me to know? And trust that whatever thoughts come up, whatever feelings you've got, that's you talking to yourself. Those thoughts aren't wrong. Those thoughts are asking you to be listened to. Those thoughts are there to be understood. You don't have to know what they mean right now. You just have to trust that when it's right, they'll reveal themselves to you. And when you're ready, open your eyes. And what I'm going to do is break you into breakout rooms. And I want you to share with each other. I just want you to share with each other, who are you? You can share with each other what you do. That's kind of by the by. It's up to you how you wish to share that information. But share with each other, who are you? What is it that brings you here? And from a social media perspective, what is it you're dying wondering about? Okay. So this is me doing breakout rooms for the first time ever. Right, okay. I'm going to break you into, so I've got, increase this. Right, okay. Check breakout rooms. Okay, so there's in some rooms, can I add a room? Okay, so I'm going to do the some rooms. How do I do this? I don't want me in a room. I don't want Katie. Oh, Katie, it looks like you're going to be. How do I move you out of a room? Well, maybe if you're in whichever room you're in.
I don't mind being in a room.
Yeah, whichever room. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to move you. Move to room 7. And move Andy Williams. Stay where you are. So you're going to be a room on your own, Kit. I'll move into a room with Andy. There you go. So we should have lots of 2s in every room. Right.
Will you remind us of the questions?
Yeah. So who are you? What brings you here? What are you dying wondering about social media? Okay. And I'll then give you if you assume you got a couple of minutes each, and then I'll give you a 1 minute warning. That should flag up in your rooms, and then that minute will count down. You'll come back and join us. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, go. Right. Hello, Rachel.
Hello, are you with me?
No, Erin Byer should be with you, but I can join in.
Right.
So I'm going to go and find out where Erin is. I'm just
yes,
you know.
I wondered why I was Billy No Mate.
Yeah, I'm going to go and try and retrieve her. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be back. Hello. This person's not there, are they, Jim?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I've just joined your room because you've asked for help. So I'm gonna try and put you in with another person's in a room on their own. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be back. So I'm going to move you to. Oh no, Erin's in that room. Okay. So who is this person here then? You're in a room. Otherwise, you'll be on your own, wouldn't you?
I'm used to talking to myself, Ryan.
Yeah, I know, right?
At least my microphone works. I'm pretty impressed with that.
Yeah. What's weird? So somebody. It's okay. So see, I'm gonna put you in a room. Okay. I'm gonna invite you to join. Yeah, I'm gonna get you to join this room.
Okay.
So the other person's not there, are they? Let me. Yeah, I'm going to move you because this other person isn't interacting with you. So I'm going to get you to move to room 7. There you go. Where's everyone gone? Hello? Oh my God. Where's everyone gone? Uh-huh. That's so funny for anyone on this recording. I realised what's going on. I'm in a space on my own because everyone's in a breakout room. I thought I'd lost everyone. How funny is that? Well, there you go. That's the novice experiencing their own breakout room. Oh, you're back, Anita.
Is it just me and you?
Yeah, but I tell you what was weird is, honestly, for a while I thought I'd lost everyone, and I was going, shit, where's everyone gone? I was like, this is not working. And then I was just like, literally, so if the
I'll
recording,
mute myself. Looks like
so like the recording was happening. Oh, they're coming back. So the recording was happening, and I was just like, oh my God, I've lost everyone, shit. And then suddenly you all start looking back. Oh no, okay. So the recording's going. So at midpoint, if you will review this in a minute, you just see me panic all on my own. Hello, everyone. Oh God, that was so funny. It was so weird just being here on my own. Have we got everyone back? No. Are they back? How do I... Is everyone back? Oh, we've got a chat. Someone on chat. Who's chatting? Ours didn't work, unfortunately. Oh, gutted. So Gozzy's didn't work. Where is
I had 2 in my room.
Yeah, I threw someone else in your room because they had nobody on theirs.
Oh.
So I apologise if that didn't... I wasn't seeing this, everyone. I was literally left on my own going, shit, have I just killed this off?
Oh, ours didn't work because I can only get audio to work. Oh, that's a shame.
Wow.
Mine worked.
That's made me think about whether we do the breakout room later in the call, right? It worked, did it, Emma?
Yeah, everyone stick your hand up if it worked.
Yes, yes, yes. Rachel?
Yeah.
Did yours work, Rachel?
No. So it's...
Mine only didn't work because Erin couldn't get her computer audio to work. She had only... so I said phone me, but by the time she got a headset and was going to phone me, we were back to the main room. So.
Okay, and we also have somebody joined us on the call.
Brilliant question in mine, I have to say.
Well, go on then. So what was some of the what was that one then, Katie? This section, I just want to know what.
Jim's at the end. We were like, you've got 10 seconds, ask your question, because we were going to put us back in the room. And he said, how do you get a following without being a pain in the arse?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yes. So someone else want to raise their hand if they had an interesting or thing that, what is it you won't go wondering about? What are some of the feelings from each other, from the people in the room? Yes, Emma. I need to unmute you. Unmute. Talk. Oh, unmute.
All right.
Do it again. Stop it. Go.
Sorry, I should leave you in control, Ryan, but I'm not used to releasing control. No, we just have very different approaches. I really want to die wondering whether it's all worthwhile at all. Anyway, I don't want to die wondering. So I find the whole thing just draining in so many ways, and I just think, is anyone listening out there anyway? So but whereas Tracy, it would actually, I got the sense, wants to know more about it. So we were in quite different questions, unless I quoted you, Tracy.
Well, Tracy's just oh no, she's smiling. Good. Okay. I must admit, I'm kind of almost probably a bit of both camps personally. I kind of think, when it comes to social media, and another part of me knows that if I want to build a community at all, then actually I would be a fool to overlook it completely. So I'm kind of in that, I don't know how to play this, which is kind of part of this call. Anyone else?
That was, and Andy was wanting to, how do you ethically build a following, which actually was quite similar to Jim with the not being a pain in the arse.
What do you understand by ethically? Although it's Andy's question, what do you understand by that?
Without using manipulative marketing tactics or other said methods of building a following, how to do it authentically, really. and have traction with it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? Any advances on those that you've heard already?
I'd love to hear.
Yeah.
Me. I think Peter and I had similar conversation, but my thing was, is anybody actually doing it a different way? So I don't want to.
So what do you mean? What do you think it is they're doing? And when you suggest that they're doing it different ways, what's the?
I work in comms, but I've done lots of courses and lots of stuff, and get post twice a day on LinkedIn, do 3 Facebook lives, blah blah blah, and I'm like, none of my people are online in the day. They're all at work.
Yeah.
So it's like, who am I talking to? It's like, I don't want to do it that way. I want to know, are there people out there doing it a different way? And if they are, then isn't that the way? It's like, be more authentic rather than I call it fake marketing.
You call it what? Friend marketing.
Fake marketing.
Oh, fake marketing. Fake marketing.
Yeah. I'm with you.
I mean, I think my struggle is balancing. There are 3 main platforms that I work on. LinkedIn, definitely most. Twitter a bit. I have a love-hate relationship with Twitter, and Facebook, because we're building an online community in Facebook, which is starting to get some traction. But I can't give it the attention that or each of those things it needs. And I just I have spurts of doing it and then silence. And just keeping that up, that regular momentum, because I know that's important. I find really hard, and I can't afford to outsource it. I've got no problem being authentic on it. I think, actually, that's not a problem. It's just balancing all of it. And I've got a company Twitter account. Do I need a personal one? Or I can't run both. I can barely run one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Any other advances on all that you've heard so far?
I think for me personally, it's learning to exist and work in an egotistical format without letting the ego run wild with myself and still see results for my own clients and for my own platforms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gozzy. So I was just doing a chat with Gozzy as well. Gozzy just dropped on the chat saying, I've lost sound. So, okay, I'm looking at multiple things. I don't know if I can do it all at once. Okay. So why don't me and you, Katie, jump on the kind of learning points thing that you and I, the document I've created. I'll share this with everyone and you and I talk through this. So as I said before at the beginning, I'm going to basically almost have a bit of a Q&A, back and forth conversation, a Michael Parkinson moment on the sofa with Katie about everything that she wants to share. But obviously this is take away from this, and I'll share this as a handout afterwards as well. So take your own notes if you want to now, but I'll share this with you later. But obviously from whatever's being shared in the questions and whatever, from whatever's being shared, think about what questions you might have related to all that's being discussed. And we'll come to that afterwards, your questions, and from that we'll do a deeper dive into one or two of those key questions. Okay, so let's do this share screen. Oh my god, can't even do a shared screen. So if I do share my desktop, yes,
if not copy and but then we can't see everyone.
No, you can't see everyone can't see us and we can't see everybody, but you and I can hear each other, right?
Yeah. I wonder about copying and pasting it into the comments instead.
I can see you guys.
Oh, can you see us still?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, everyone's happy. It seems everyone's happy. So basically everyone can see my screen now. So we're just going to quickly give you an overview as to what's being on here, and then I'll jump back to it. So Katie's obviously written a couple of books. I've read the most recent book, which is kind of Social Media for the New Age. Oh, someone's clicked on more. What are they saying in chat? Just jump into chat. Oh, no, okay, people just ignore that. Okay, good. So yeah, I've read her second book, the one that's literally just gone to print, and she's given me an overview in terms of the first book. And I pulled out of this what my learning points were, fed this back to Katie, and Katie's kind of given it the kind of thumbs up, as it were. But obviously, there's so much more to elaborate than the few learning points that are in here, because she's written 2 books on it rather than a one-page PDF. But this is kind of an overview. So, a guide on how to build an online community without selling your soul to the devil.
Well, should I give a tiny bit of background, just because it takes us to where we are? So I was in the music industry and started using MySpace right back in the day to reach audiences, because I was working in music, and the only way you could get heard was through the radio or through the press. So I really started to see how disruptive it was, but in a really positive way. And of course, it's grown and it's grown and it's grown. I set up my agency in 2007. I was doing podcasting and running people's platforms, and just the amount it's changed and shifted. So it's so interesting hearing all of the questions that I heard from that breakout session, because that's where I got to. I was like, this is my, this has been my job, my passion. And it's, there are times when you have to question, is it all worthwhile? How do we do this without using those manipulative techniques?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And it's got worse. Like, I would say in the last 3 or 4 years, with people buying likes and follows and the influencer explosion, I mean, it's just got crazy. So what I was doing, I work specifically with authors and experts in the mind, body, spirit field. And it was just like, okay, so how do we do this with both intention and with integrity? And it was just like, okay, so we have, and without it taking over your life. So it's like, how do we do this? So I have been working kind of one-to-one with mainly people with single businesses rather than brands. They are people. So there is an aspect of, I think, there's a different kind of social media, whether you're a person or whether you're a brand product. So I'll be much more talking about us as people using social media. And I guess that's where I kind of just wanted to start from.
Brilliant. And I'm glad you did as well. It just kind of illuminates it for people. So what might, picking up on what you're saying there, sort of what I'm hearing is, bearing in mind that the majority of who you're doing this for and kind of what you're advocating is for individuals as people, as the person is the brand, as it were. But I'm guessing this translates to companies as well, as a collective of people, as a community communicating to another community. So your number one point that you and I both agree on was effectively know what you stand for. So in this, as I said, people can read the screen anyway, but to stand up for what it is know what you stand for and stand up for it, to take action. And you didn't just mean in this sense, I don't think, just taking action in terms of online. This is more a case of, if you are someone that believes in protecting the environment, that you're someone that would actually take action towards that, whether it's going on marches, whether it's doing stuff in your home in terms of recycling, so on and so forth. But it's actually kind of not just saying, well, I stand for something and a kind of being a mouthpiece for it, but actually living and breathing it. As a consequence of that, that's where you maybe get your ideas in terms of content creation, and content not necessarily being just, this is a piece of marketing. It's more a case of anything and everything could be a snapshot of your life in terms of the way in which you're living and your being, and so on and so forth. And that's something that you're sharing, almost like people are having a window into your life. So therefore you are sharing it authentically, as it were.
Yeah, I'm not massively into having to give a window into your life.
Okay, perfect. Illuminated. That's what I want you to do.
That's happened. You're on social media, therefore you've got to show everyone you're having a green juice for breakfast. I'm not into all of that at all. What I mean by this is, right, we've created these social media identities. So we have a slightly different identity on LinkedIn. I mean, you were talking to me about this, Brian, before you came on. You wrote a post for LinkedIn and you were like, oh, blah. And then you wrote a post that you thought was right for Instagram. And then you wrote a slightly different one of Facebook. And it wasn't until you got to the Facebook one that you landed on who you were.
Yeah.
And actually that's the post that then got engagement.
Yes.
So you're trying to be a slightly different version of yourself for those other two platforms. And this is what we've done. We've created lots of different identities for ourselves, and that's really hard to keep up with. So one of my big things about knowing what you stand for is really knowing who you are and being yourself, which comes back to Ryan's point about everything is an opportunity to wake up. Like, who are we being when we're online? What version of ourselves? And if we're changing ourselves, why are we changing ourselves? Why are we not able to show up authentically as ourselves in those spaces? And so it gets yourself to ask those questions.
Yeah.
So when I talk about knowing what you stand for, taking action, it's like I see it as we're here in the physical dimension, but I'm also here in the digital dimension right now at the same time. And how do I take action? By being myself as much as possible in all the places where I exist. And so I exist as a digital version of myself, and we are existing with these avatars that we're creating. But when we think about how we really connect with people in the physical world, and I don't like even the terms anymore that we've got digital life and physical life. It is all real life. We are completely enmeshed in this digital society, digital culture, digital life as a whole life.
Yeah.
So when we're creating content, how can we, like I always work with my clients around, what are the questions that people ask you in the real world? What are the stories that you tell? What are those things that people come to you about? And how do you create content that's in alignment with what's happening here, like in your life? And how do you then turn that into content so that you can really take what's happening here and use it as the World Wide Web that it is to reach more people with that, with that story, with that message that's congruent across all of the places.
Yeah, because I just remembered, having read your second book, I wrote down various quotes and things that spoke to me. And one of them was, the reality is your digital and embodied lives come together to create one whole life, a life that includes both. So this idea that there is one and there's another is almost where part of the problem comes in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course we're so new. I mean, we're 10, 15 years into this. And so I think we all have to sort of sit around and look at where we've come to and go, okay, right. And we've got to remember as well that these platforms, data is more valuable than gold. Data is more valuable than oil now, apparently. And these apps were addictive by design. They've got the gamification layered in as well through likes and the dopamine hit that we get. So we have to sort of sit and look, okay, what is this environment that we're in? And how do I use it as a tool effectively that doesn't take over my life, but also really allows me to connect with others authentically? As we have to get good with boundaries. We have to get good at not like thinking, oh, I've got to post on social media today. What am I going to post? Like that's the way to sort of spiral out of kind of using it effectively, because we're constantly on the back foot with it. So I very much advocate not necessarily scheduling everything, because I think we're in a day where we want those in the moment, like shares and authentic shares, but you can still create authentic content, whether that's videos, and I think about things in like series of videos and in seasons, like start to think of yourself as a content creator.
Yeah.
And what is the content that you're creating, and how is that really sharing what it is that you stand for?
And to pick up on a point that you haven't said, but I think you're alluding to in the notes that people will be able to see, or I've shared my screen, community is communication that unites us. So you're actually sharing content which kind of points almost to the second point as well. But this is, you're coming back to the sharing what it is you stand up for, daring to just be you. But you're sharing what it is you care about with people you care about, even if you don't even know who they are, so they can find you. So you're kind of almost using what it is you're sharing as that is the kind of communication that will unite the community.
Yeah, and I think I feel like the word community has been misused by marketing people. Like,
can I just interrupt you there? Can I interrupt you there? For everyone else's benefit,
yeah.
When I said to you, when I came back from Camino, I said, I want to build community. You went, yeah, you and 10 other billion other people. Fucking hell, if you hear the word community one more time, I'll shove it up their ass. I think it's pretty much what you said to me. Just to take the old unzip it and sit for real.
Do you really want to build community? Do you really know what that word means?
Yeah.
No, and it has, all the membership sites we have now, everything that, I've got a community. Have you really, though? The problem is with social media, again, with the gamification aspect, we're always chasing the numbers. We're always looking for that extra 1,000 followers, that extra 100 followers, that extra how many likes. But we're not then looking at the people who's actually there. So I've started to have a practice as I really look at who's liked my posts, and then I really go and have a look at some of theirs, because actually that's a communication that's uniting us. And they're in my digital space, they're in my digital field. I want to know who's receiving my content.
Yeah.
So and delete fake accounts. Actually, this morning I went through all my followers, and anyone who didn't have a profile picture or had a couple of numbers at the end of their name, I was just like, dum, 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 dum. I don't want those accounts following me.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you get, it doesn't matter if I've got 200 less followers. Like, I'd rather that from an algorithm perspective. It's much better to have a smaller audience, and those audience dig what you're saying and actually interact with you, than to have a really big audience and no one's engaging. There's so much being done on social media for social media's sake. It's just feeding the beast that is Facebook, basically.
Which I like, it kind of almost jumps to the third point, which is kind of aim to create real community in real life. So whether this is literally, as you said to me, are you sure you want to build community? I was like, no, seriously, like I want to bring people together. Whether what we're doing now is bringing people together, obviously, but also offline. Some of my meetings I've already been running, I was like, I genuinely want to do this, and I'm wanting to build a community. I'm wanting to kind of like, the people that don't know me and I don't know them, how do I bring them to this? And we actually create community. And you were sort of, when you saw me actually doing it for real, you're like, oh, you do mean community. Oh, okay. But then there's this part, well, how do you do it online? How do you, what the hell is social media, right? So there's this part of it where I think it's what you pointed to as well. When you sort of, you look at who's following you, and wanting to know who they are by way of kind of like, well, these are real people. I'm wanting to connect with these people. I'm wanting to speak with them. I'm wanting to serve them. Yeah. I mean, I love this quote. I've got it down as one of my learning points now. Community is much more than belonging to something. It's about doing something together that makes belonging matter. I absolutely love that. It's like you're effectively pointing to, this isn't just, well, we all agree that the environment's fucked, for argument's sake. It's actually, well, how can we do something about this together and actually stand for that, and kind of, whether it's go out on the streets, whether it's create more meaningful content together, whatever. But rather than just having a conversation about it and just kind of liking each other's stuff, it's more like a case of, well, actually, how do we do this how do we have this conversation to actually do something? And when you're doing that, that then creates more of a sense of it being a real thing rather than something that's necessarily sold to the devil.
But we have to think like where we've come from. Like we came from, there was, in terms of screens and media, we had the television and we had the movies. That was like broadcast at us. Then Web 2.0 happened, and it has become a conversation, and there is the opportunity for community. But I think there's an element of us still being caught in the broadcasting and not then we post and then we don't listen. And so it's just like, how do we create more opportunities to listen to each other and to co-create with each other? And through those things, we do then, by proxy, start to create real community. And I think community, like I've said, I think it gets misused. And I don't think we can necessarily create community in the old-fashioned sense of the word through online. But I really do think we can create comm-unity, because people do support each other. It's like, it's like, someone, when you came on the call, said they've been pimping you out. Like, to me, that's community.
Thanks, Anita.
Yeah. But that's community. That's supporting each other. That's you know, and I think we got lost in digital culture along the way, and it's like, okay, so how do we get control back and really make this work for us?
Brilliant. So there's obviously lots more I want to dive into this, but obviously this isn't my call per se, this is everybody's call. I now need to figure out how do I unshare my screen to get back to where I was. No, seriously, how do I do that? That's not a joke question. Right. Stop share. Yes. Stop share. Oh, there I am. There's everyone back. Oh, fuck. This whole Zoom thing's a mystery, right? So I want to know now from other people. Obviously, there's a lot more information than what's on that information I was sharing, what Katie was talking about. But the only real way I've found in the past of really understanding this stuff is someone actually roll their sleeves up and say, this is my stuff, this is what I'm literally trying to work with. So given what Katie's just shared and given all the stuff that everybody is trying to work with themselves, what questions have you got? Basically, I'm almost saying, hands up, who wants to kind of dive deeper on this with their own stuff for the service of everybody? So yes, Gozzy, unmute you. Unmute yourself. I'll let you unmute you. Can you unmute you? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey everyone. Hi Ryan and Katie. Thank you for this. So I had a question I wrote down while you were speaking, which is really apt in like the being authentic and credibility. So as a coach, I always have this like fine line between how much of myself do I share, how much of my client stuff do I share, and you know what then makes me credible. Like, does it make me credible to always share testimonials and like my deepest darkest secrets, or does it make me credible that I'm consistently posting and you see a bit of my life? Like, what is the balance between in building common communication with your people? Like, what's the balance between how much of yourself do you give, and like how do you share what you do without sort of selling your soul?
Before you answer the question, Katie, don't forget, we said at this point we're just going to capture the questions.
Oh yeah.
I know, right? Otherwise we'd have this. So
did you write that one down?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is, what is the balance between sharing community, sharing communication that unites us, and just being myself in terms of all the other aspects of your life, I guess. Is that fair to say? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. Because I have like, you know, you have a business, like one of the ladies shared, you have a Facebook private page, a business page, an Instagram business page, a LinkedIn account, but then you also have your life outside of all of that.
Yeah.
Where do I begin? Where do I end? If it's all the same, then why can't I just be the same everywhere? Why do I need to have all of these different posts that mean different things to different? It goes. Yeah.
So if I the bottom line.
What platform?
What's that?
Can I just ask what platform is your main platform?
Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. So if I had to bottom line that, the old good coach's question, you're basically saying, well, no, in fact, you say it in your own words. If you had to bottom line your own question.
Where do I begin? Where do I end in terms of my online, offline presence? And how can I be credible in all of that?
Perfect. Love it. Nice one. Thank you, Gozzy. Right. Anyone else got a question? I'm not saying that we're going to cover it or that we're not going to cover it. I just want to cater everyone that's in this space. Anyone else? Yes, Emma. Unmute yourself, Emma.
My online media is LinkedIn, LinkedIn and Twitter. Do I do anything else? No, mainly those things. I have Facebook. That's totally personal. I'm even a different person in my personal life, different name. So they just don't, and I don't do very much on that. I'm more of a stalker on Facebook. I don't create a community. So I suppose I had the community question. I like meeting people face to face. I like that really direct communication. So I do use Facebook, but more of the messenger bit of it than sharing wider. So on LinkedIn, I can definitely feel that I create a community. I'm building people that I work similarly with, and it's quite nice to have occasional chat on them. I just don't sense that on Twitter. I obviously don't use it very much, so it could be a self-fulfilling thing. But I have to tweet, well, I do tweet in a business account name. I have one and my business partner has another. And I feel because we've called it something to do with our business and it's not me, it should be relevant to that. And I just think actually the people I'm trying to reach out to aren't following me. You know, they're not there. They're not going to hear me. And so on Twitter, if I'm not on there myself looking at Twitter, because I think it's the biggest time waster and it just drives me mad. So I'm not on there. I'm not creating a community anyway.
But don't use it.
Yeah. Well, then I'm under pressure from my business partner to do so because it's really important for our business. So she's very busy on the other Twitter account. She treats like her personal one, but it's much closer.
Why is it more important for your business than LinkedIn?
That's why I don't really know. That's what I'm wondering.
But this is the thing. People say it's really important, but is it really important? You have to make a call on that. If you're able to create a community on LinkedIn and you enjoy that more, put your energy there. And I would say let her get on with Twitter if that's working for the business, and let her focus on building and doing that, rather than you just feeling like you're beating your head against the wall.
No, which is what happens because I don't do things that I don't like doing. So that's the. I kind of like to.
Sorry, Ryan. I know I'm not.
Yeah, I'm going to interject there, Emma. Is anything? Is there any? If you had to bottom line your own question,
right, exactly.
I
think. Is there any information, statistical evidence that it's actually beneficial to do this?
Well, yeah, I mean, it can be beneficial.
Don't answer the question, Katie.
Sorry.
Don't answer the question. Hold that thought. I was never going to get it done, Katie. Come on, man. You're not playing the game.
Does it particularly, I think particularly if it's a community that you're not really engaging with yourself. Should I make myself engage because it matters, or does it not matter?
So the question is, does social media matter?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is that your question?
Yes, I suppose it is in a way. But yeah, it's about, yes, does it matter?
Does it matter? Got it. Okay. Anyone else? Can you mute yourself again, please, Emma? Yes, Kristen.
So I have, my Facebook consists of my friends and family from basically high school and clients that are totally separate from the line of work that I'm transitioning into. I want to build a Facebook group that is a real community. But so all of the points that I would give prior to it with people that I've worked with is invite your friends. Your friends want to support you, but they are not this. They are not. So how do you build from literally ground zero? That's my question.
How do you literally build from ground zero? Yeah, well, yeah, you and me both. That's like exactly where I'm at right now. I'm just posting all sorts of shit going, is that a community? Yeah, got it. Thank you. Any other questions in the room? Yes, Anita. I'll come back. I saw your hang up, Kelsey, but Anita first.
Right. My question is specifically for Instagram. Business versus personal account and private versus public.
Ooh, nice.
And my private versus public is I feel like I'm on Instagram's payroll because I report accounts every day.
You both.
So, although that was very succinctly asked the question, just so I understand it, okay, Instagram, private, I've just literally all put down, and I know I haven't understood this correctly. Instagram, private versus public.
Yeah, so business account versus personal account.
That's it, yeah.
And public account, of those accounts, public or private, and I know the business account can't be private.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Right, Kelsey, you had your hand up before. Yeah, go on.
my question is, how do I make things congruent when I have different facets to what I do? Because I have a brick and mortar studio where for spiritual entrepreneurs to come and bring their clients, do their classes, do their workshops. And then also I have my reading and speaking side of myself, where I'm going to be traveling in 2020 and hopefully finishing my book and doing all that kind of stuff. And I feel like I'm torn. I can do one or the other. And I feel like I have two completely different audiences. Instagram is all coaches, all spiritual entrepreneurs, and people that I end up mentoring because they haven't been doing it for long and they don't know how to fill a class. They don't know how to put themselves on Instagram. They don't know what to talk about. And then I have my Facebook community, which are people who want readings, who want to come out and see me in their different cities, who want to buy from me in the services that I provide. And then I have the studio's social media, which I'm trying to get people into the classes and the workshops and the services that we do here. But I'm also trying to market the studio as a rental space and event space to the. It's too much. I'm just listening to myself and I'm like, sweating.
I was like, I'm not even going to write this down. I'm going, this is too much. So if you had a bottom line, your own question, what are you asking?
God, how do you, I thought I had my question, but now I'm like, I don't even know what it is. How do you make social media can I bring all of that stuff together into, this is who I am and this is what I offer? Maybe that's my question.
Great, thank you. Okay. I noticed that you're doing lots of note taking, Katie. I'm glad because I've stopped doing that. I've realised I can't do the asking the question and then noting it down. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone any questions? I'm saying this also to looks like Sharon's iPhone, Andy Williams, and Erin Byers. Obviously I can't see your faces, but if you do have any questions, so what's happened? Erin's just disappeared. Oh, it just said her name, disappeared. So either the two of you that are still there that I can't see, if you have any questions, put it into the chat space maybe.
Do the algorithms respect authenticity as much as me?
Yeah, right. Yes, Gozzy.
I'm going to ask another question.
Go on then. Why not? I mean,
So in the spirit of building a true online community, what does it look like now that we've moved into this new age? How do we actually do that authentically and properly without ego and so we're genuinely giving value?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, I've got hands are going up all over the place. Emma, and literally 30 seconds each now because I want to dive in.
It's kind of just to follow up to that and something you said around about it's how do you choose which communities to get into? I'd like to be in your community, but I know I haven't anyway got the time to follow all the people I'd like to follow the communities of. So how do you make sure you're reaching to the right community and you're in the communities you want to be in?
Great question. Kristen, you had your hand up.
Yeah, this piggybacks off of the whole algorithm. I mean, love it or hate it. What if you followed for the sake of following everybody that followed you, and now Instagram sees that you're just like smeared across the board and you're not hyper-focused in what relates to who you are? How do you repair a damaged algorithm?
That's like how do you repair yourself? My whole algorithm of life is out of whack. Okay, so I'm going to stop there then. So, Katie, you've obviously been writing some things down, but you're also the one that's going to, I know, right? If I said to you, Katie, you had to dive in on, let's start with one, okay, for now, just not give you too much of a headache. Which one actually really appeals to you in terms of you think it's going to help in service of everyone else in this room? Obviously, you're not necessarily going to be able to answer all the questions to all the people, but which ones do you think are really going to help most?
I think Gozzy's last question about community authentically and properly, so giving value and doing it a new way, helps to answer a couple of the others at the same time.
Okay. Would you like to start there?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to say is, purely because of the time-wise, if we sort of say 10 minutes on this, I'm not saying you've only got 10. I'm just saying, like, as a start.
But what I'm going to try and do is feed the other questions through.
Perfect.
Obviously.
Yeah, I'm giving us until probably about 35 minutes past 5 for this whole section. So we've got half an hour or so. So we can do it exactly as you just said, but I'm just basically saying to you, I am also going to make sure I pull you back on time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because there's my brain's going bing, 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 bing.
Yeah, right.
You know.
And at the end of all of this, there's going to be some stuff I'm going to be saying to everybody, what are you taking away? Yes, you're probably going to have more questions, which point I think is probably going to be a case of ask Katie after the session. So this is more a case of I'm wanting you guys to kind of think about, this is so obvious, but in many ways, we almost need to be told this. Think about everything that's being said. Don't think about it just like, okay, this is a nice idea. Think about it like, well, this is what I'm actually trying to do in my own business or whatever you're trying to do. How does this apply to me? How would I literally take the information that's being shared and do something different with what I'm trying to do? That's how I would advise you kind of take these notes down. And then obviously that'll spurn questions thereon in. So go, Katie. Over to you.
Okay.
I know, right? No pressure.
Right. So when we're thinking about community authentically and properly, I am probably going to be coming at this from maybe sort of Instagram as the platform, but it does relate to the other platforms as well. And in relation to that question, which ties to something Emma was saying, like, we need to choose the platform where our people are really, and that could be one or two. So like Kelsey, you're saying you've got all these different places, and can you combine it? Yes, I believe that you can, because at the end of the day, it's got to work for you as much as it's got to work for anyone else, and that's the same for all of you. I think we've got ourselves completely like rinsed out by trying to do too many at the same time, and then we're not doing any of them really that properly. Brilliant. So it's like, how do you choose like one or two, and how can you be kind of in alignment between those two, because you've got slightly different groups of people. So that's you also being authentic, because you're in a place that you already know some people, and so unless you know that there's really people there that you want to meet, then again it's like, what are you doing there? So like that question between LinkedIn and Twitter, if there are people on LinkedIn you can talk to, because we've got to stop thinking about the numbers and start thinking about the people, then use it as a tool to talk to those people. But if you're not talking to anyone and you're just tweeting out for the sake of it, it's not going to work. And that's the same for any platform, in my opinion. If your energy isn't there, if everything's just scheduled, as the question I think from Andy in the comments about the algorithm, we can post as many inspiring memes as we like and get hundreds of likes on them, but then are any of those people actually coming to work with us? Are they coming to our workshops? Are they coming to our events? Are they coming to our spaces? Probably not. I still get most of my work through word of mouth, which is then supported by what I do on social media. So it's like, how are we using social media as a tool to support us in what we're doing in our real life again? So this question of authentic community, it is like, who am I talking to and how am I talking to them, and what am I using as the vehicle to speak to them through? That could be a weekly video, that could be a monthly blog post, that could be a podcast series. Thinking about how you're coming back, coming back to that learning point of what you stand for. How are you using social media as the medium to deliver that, and how are you then also using it to get feedback and have conversations with others? So for some businesses, you want 10,000 followers. I had a call with someone today, and it would serve her to get there on a platform like Instagram. You get the swipe up link in stories. So, you've got certain, again, they've made this gamification. You get to a certain point, you get some extra tools, which is really a bit mean, in my opinion. But, so there are some reasons you want to get a book deal, they do want numbers. But if we're not doing it authentically, are those people going to go out and buy that book? Quite often what I find is you might have 150,000 on a page, but you're still only getting like 5,000 engagements. So if you've not taken that time to build the relationships, and that relationship building can really be done through content. You don't have to be there on the other end of it 24/7, like having those boundaries, but really making time for the content creation and letting that content be consistent. So
can I just ask a question? And it just highlights just the point. Just again, remember from the notes I read before in your book, you said in the book, authenticity has lost a bit of its meaning due to social media. So there's almost like a buzzword, isn't it? Like authentic, be your authentic self. What the fuck do you mean by that? I'm not meaning you. I'm meaning anyone when I say that. I'm like, what does anyone mean by being authentic?
Yeah.
That's it.
What it is.
Yeah, exactly.
This is part, again, and we've started to use vulnerability. I think it was a question, Gozzy, you were asking about how much of yourself do you share? And I think that has to be a really personal question. Some people really want to share themselves. And if they want to use social media to do that, like, great. Some people don't. Some people are more introverted. They don't want to show. Like, I personally don't feel the need to share my lifestyle or my life with people through social media, because I'm using social media to spread my message and to spread my work. So I keep really focused on that. And by being focused on that, that stops me from worrying about the other stuff. And I did for ages. I was like, I was traveling a lot. I need to show everyone where I'm traveling. Like, that's like a thing that we've created. And I suddenly saw my reflection. I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because everyone else is doing this. I'm doing this because those coaches with their 6 figures and their, travel-y lifestyle are all doing it, and it's what we're all meant to be doing. It was just hang fire for a second. No, you're doing this because you want to do it. You're not doing this because you want to show people on social media that you're doing it. So it's like having those moments of thinking, would I share this with a friend? So if you'd share that with a friend, would I share it with a colleague? Like, that can be that barometer that tells you whether you want to share it or not, and keep your credibility. I think there's been so much in the copywriting tricks around, you do the pain point, then you do this, then you tell your story, and then you hook people in, and there's all of that stuff going on. But when everyone's doing that, we've lost our authenticity, because we're not really being honest. We're trying to get people on a mailing list or in a sales funnel. And so I think everyone's got to about here, maybe here, possibly here with that stuff. And I'm hearing that from all of you on this call too. So how
just to point back, just circle back on what you're saying, it's kind of like back to one of the learning points about kind of aim to build a community. So I'm hearing what you just said then was almost like a throwaway line, but I sense it's probably a bit bigger than that, is kind of like to get away from trying to sign people up, trying to get away from trying to fill a pipeline or convert someone or so on and so forth. It's kind of like ultimately we're all trying to do social media from one aspect to do that, but then there's another aspect, which I'm not saying this is the answer, I'm hearing it as a kind of, if you're just hell-bent on this has got to convert, then you're just going to lose a part of yourself. That's almost part of the devil playing the game with you, right?
I take it there was a company that I used to absolutely adore and go on loads of retreats and love them as people, but they obviously went on a big copywriting course and how to convert your funnel, and it just lost and I stopped going to their things because it had lost its magic through the art of marketing. And so I just think everybody's had enough at some level, just because it's so overwhelming all the time. So my thing is that we're real people. When we show up and we share from the heart and we enjoy, or we create from that space, that thing that we really have to share, if we're constantly just trying to capture people, they can feel that, particularly now. So it's like, actually, no, so how am I building the relationship? It's not about, because if the relationship's there, I don't need to be on an email list. I don't need to be on, I'm in their heart, I'm in their mind. Like when I do something or we offer something, or, you know, you want to be there. Like you guys all want to be here today because some of you know me and some of you know Ryan. So, and some of that's been done through social media and through word of mouth recommendation too. So that for me is, and I, you know, and then we recognize each other because we've seen each other in those spaces, and we've seen each other acting authentically and not just trying to get us on a sales funnel or in a list. And that's a much stronger relationship. I'd rather have 100 or 200 of those people than 10,000 of people that don't give a shit, you know?
Yeah. And so well, is that answering your question, Gozzy?
Yes, it is. And then I have follow-up questions, but I might have to ask that later, because I'm like, as you're speaking, I'm like, oh my gosh, but how about this? And what about this? And what about this? So,
I mean, it is a big topic, right?
Yeah. Just a little thing from that, because I have, you know, I have done some of the marketing things in terms of like, you know, the opt-in, the sales funnel, I have a Facebook group, which is really small but very engaged, and I love them, and it's working. And part of me still feels like I'm just, I guess it's doing these marketing things, the activities, and staying really true to yourself. And I agree with you. I think having a small group, for me, it works really well. And of course, I'd love it to be bigger, but right now, I'm giving love to the people who are already in there and speaking to them and engaging with them. But it's like, how do we, keeping that authenticity throughout as we scale the business, as we grow in business, because we're all businesses here, I'm guessing, and everybody wants to make a profit and do well. And it kind of requires us scaling at some point.
Yeah.
And we're not losing ourselves in that. Yeah.
Do you want to take, because I want that to me is almost like the follow on to the same piece. It's almost like I'm hearing that as there's the authenticity piece going on, but then as we grow, and the company you were talking about before, I sense I know who it is. And they have gotten bigger, and I think I know there's that part of me that wonders whether, and let's not look to them, but any of us, whether it's a company growing bigger or an individual and reaching out to more people. Like, how do we, and we're trying to create community, like there's community like 200 people, everyone, right? And then there's like community 20,000 people, to be there. But I mean,
it can absolutely work. So I have one client, she's written like 20 books. We've got 175,000 on Facebook. I started with her Instagram. She's 75 years old, which is just awesome. So like social media to her is like, so we came up, we were just like, okay, so how do we keep this personal and keep this authentic, but still speak to a ton of people? And so we create consistency. And so rather than kind of being so available, she's available once a week. We do a Facebook Live, and that's when she's available. And then her audience kind of understands she can't manage a platform with that many people. So we have a team, and there's me and there's another lady, and we sometimes answer the direct messages and the comments and get back to people. And Diana does it herself sometimes too, so it's like, but we make sure that her audience know that she has a team and that they can talk to us too. So it's just like, the bigger you get, you have to get help. There's no way you can manage a platform with that many people, because you're holding space for an enormous amount of people. And I believe when we're connected through social media, we are energetically connected on some level. So, we need to like really work out how we manage that. But the scaling up and still staying personal is totally possible.
I realise I'm talking and I haven't actually unmuted myself. So going back to the list of questions, please just make sure we do everyone service per. What else on that list speaks to you? What else do you feel that you haven't covered that you'd really like people to know?
So much.
I know, right?
Have a quick little moment to have a look.
One thing that I just highlight and underline, you said it really in relation to Emma's first question, and you've highlighted it a few other times as well. I'm hearing this kind of sense of, don't think about social media as just like you've got 4 billion channels or whatever mediums to communicate through. Just find, if anything is a starting point, find that one that works for you, as meaning not just in terms of that attracts the most people to you, but the one in which you're most comfortable in, and work with it.
Well, you've got to think of it as, you know, I always say, I did a workshop once called Yoga Your Social Media. You don't get on the mat if you've not been on the mat often or ages, and just expect to be able to get your leg round your arm, you know.
What?
So, you know, we have to practice and we have to get good at it. And so there's an element of skill development that needs to happen. I think one of the problems with social media is anyone can just get on there and say anything they want. And people do. Like, people are on there, they go do a workshop, the next thing they're an expert in this and they're sharing that. Like, there's a lot we have to like move through and look through. So that's why it's so important to come back into center. Like, what can I do? What can I create? How can I build this bit by bit, baby step by giant leap? Because it tends to happen when you do it. Like, I've been on a fitness journey the last 6 months. Suddenly, like 6 months in, it crept up on me how much stronger I've got. And I think that's the same with social media. The problem is our ego. This is like, comes back to the ego thing. Our ego's like, why haven't we got any likes? Why haven't I got any follows? Oh no, nobody liked that, so I'm going to stop doing it. And then we stop and we go in and we retreat and we don't. So one of my things with that is we have to create we create these, like, go away and create like 6 episodes of something, and then over 6 weeks share them, and then have a bit of time out and go and reflect and see how that worked. But you've got to believe in your own creations, and you've got to believe in your own self, and you've got to also give yourself that space and time to get better at it.
Yeah, so I would almost underline that as well. Like, obviously I'm not the expert here, but having you and I had conversations, there's something about, and you've got it in I've got it in your learning points as well. Where is it? I've lost the page on my, play more, do what feels right. When it stops feeling like play, take a break, go with the flow and where the energy goes. And there's no right way, there's just your way. But of course you won't know what your way is until you play with it, right? Which is effectively what you're pointing to.
And there's so much conflicting and complicated advice. This whole, you've got to post 3 times a day, 5 times a day, 2 times a day, over here, over there. It's just like, I would just say, clear that noise out and create something that counts, or create connections that count. And it might be that for a little while, like, one of the things that I did was like, I haven't got space I had a tough year this year, had family stuff going on, and I didn't have space for content creation. The last thing I wanted to do was show up on social media. So I just set an intention that if people asked me to speak to their communities, I would say yes. And actually everything else, and then there would be content naturally that came off the back of that I could then share. I was still like keeping my message and developing and connecting, but actually, as far as content creation was, I was like, I can take a break. Like, just because everyone says you're not meant to take a break, like, I don't believe that that's true. I actually find when you take a break and you come back, where you've already been consistent, you have to have that consistency in the first place. It's like muscle memory. You come back to it and it's like you re-energize. Everyone's like, oh my God, I've missed you. Actually, it's really cool to see your face again and hear you again. But when we're just like churning it out and doing it for the sake of it, like that, that's not a social media that I want to be part of. And that's why I find all the memes and everything, like, they were great for a while, but like, they've totally they're like if I get another piece of unsolicited advice, and it's just like, because you've got to think it's interrupting and coming at us all day. So you've got to think about who are those people on the other side, and like, how is that being received on a day in, day out basis as well. And I think that's why when we get to know who's there, it's easier to then create content that counts for them as well as for you.
Something that just to kind of point to that, I guess, is when you're saying don't worry too much about trying to be consistent, as it were, in terms of how 5 posts a day and whatever time you're doing it. What you're saying is be consistent in yourself, and even if that means you're showing up only like you might show up 9 times over the course of one day and then no times for the next 10 days, if that's consistently you, then do that, as opposed to try and do it consistently over time, as it were. That's what I'm hearing it as. Just you're the consistent thing.
There needs to be, I always say you are the consistent part to all of it. So there needs to be a consistency in your message, in the way your stuff looks and feels as well. I think that's important, because you're competing, unfortunately, with a whole sea of things. So the quicker someone can recognize that it's you, as long as it, if it's your community, they will see that, they will recognize you, they'll see it coming down the feed, and they'll feel you before they've, and so we're in such a changing time. The big thing for this next year and this next decade is going to be about digital well-being. It is going to be, they're starting to hide likes on Instagram. That may follow suit on Facebook. I haven't fully figured out yet if it's being done for us or not. The reports that are saying with Instagram in Australia and the testing there is that likes are down by something like 15%. Because again, it's the ego getting involved. So one of the things I think is so important for us is how do we get that ego, that gamification, that addiction kind of piece out of the way, so that we can come through and then let that growth be organic. Like, not every one of us is meant to be on a stage and speaking to 10,000 people. So, it's just, we're on such different journeys. So it's like, how am I using social media to facilitate my journey in life as much as other things too?
Yeah, it's almost come back to my point, wasn't it, about everything is an opportunity to wake up. You're saying, well, yeah, this is exactly that in a social media sense. Social media is an opportunity to wake up to more of who you are.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Well, you get to say that that's right, because we're all here listening to you. So, yeah. Yes. Can I ask, before we then wrap up the kind of question piece, I want to kind of point back to Anita's question, a more practical thing. And I'm being selfish because I want to know the answer to it too. So Instagram, business or personal account?
I would say business.
You would say business.
Well, because you get the insights, and they are useful. You can also, if you really want to, run ads as well, should that be something you need at some point during your business. And sometimes we do. It is a way to reach more people in a really targeted way, as long as, again, we're doing it in an authentic way rather than in just a buy this. But it's an incredible tool. So I would say business. And I would also say, therefore public, because if you're private, it feels closed off. And I think particularly with Instagram, more than Facebook, is Instagram, you have the opportunity to reach. It's not so closed. Like Facebook, I find, is more closed and more difficult. I think Instagram is a nicer platform, personally. And I think it will continue to grow. And I think it does have a different energy to Facebook. There is more community there. Facebook groups, I don't know. I get my feeling like Facebook groups have had their day a little bit. I don't know if I'm right or wrong there, but I'm not really that bothered about being in Facebook. Again, it got too overwhelming, too many groups, too many this. It's just like, okay, how is this actually adding value? I almost feel like we're moving into more like membership models and subscription models rather than groups, and that could be like a £5 a month, £50 a month, but there's more of an energy exchange, because otherwise it's just, again, another platform, another space to keep up with people. I'd love to hear some feedback on that. Yeah.
So I'm curious, if you think that Facebook groups have had their day, where do you see that shift going? Where should we be looking?
I know. Well, I think that we can do something similar through Instagram. I mean, you're still fighting with an algorithm, but you kind of are on Facebook as well. You've got to really think about what's the intention for the group and how is that intention different for my feed or my profile. You know, are you giving yourself another thing to have to do because we think it's what we have to do? So that's the question that I would sit with. And just, you know, is it really working? Someone said they had a Facebook group that really worked for them. Was it Gozzy? Yeah, you were saying. How do you feel, Gozzy?
So I'm kind of new to the whole group thing. I just started my group probably just towards the end of the summer. We're coming up to like 100 people, so it's still pretty small. But what I find works is really having that engaged conversation. And I feel like the people who are in my group are not afraid to like speak up and say what their needs are. And I've been really consistent showing up in the group, so I think that also helps. So I do a weekly live on a Thursday night. And that's pretty much
treating the group a bit like, rather than having a page, you have a group for Facebook.
I actually have both. So I have a Facebook page, which I just kind of put business content on. I don't really do much more than like put regular content. So if anyone has a conversation with me, I can point them there. They can go have a look and get a feel of like what I do. But the group is where like I share more. I do like a weekly live. People, you know, we do a Q&A, so they come in with questions. And just like what you said, Katie, I would love to turn it into a membership subscription. So I'm planting seeds slowly in the group. That's where it's going.
I mean, Facebook have developed Facebook subscription. I was lucky enough to kind of have a play with it 6 months ago. But I don't know, I feel like with what's happening kind of globally with Facebook, and obviously Facebook own Instagram, they own WhatsApp. I'd just be interested to see how, particularly with everything going on with these political ads and just the mood around Facebook, I just wonder how that en masse might, you know, if regulation comes in, if certain things happen, like we're going to have an interesting time with Facebook potentially over this next year or so. So I have been doing quite a lot of research into how do we build community in the similar way to a Facebook group, but off of Facebook. So we're not putting all of our eggs in the Facebook basket. I've been looking at Patreon as one platform. There's another company called Disciple Media who are running community apps. You can do, there's an app, I know they're launching a web version in the new year. And then there's also Mighty Networks as well, is quite a nice one to look at. I just wonder, I don't want to give like all the power to Facebook across our sort of social media business really at this point in time. So just a little bit of future proofing aspect to that.
But I suppose it comes full circle again back to you've got, Kristen's put it in the thing, give yourself space and time to get better at it. But I'm also thinking as give yourself space and time to just play at whatever works for you and finding out what works for you. It sounds like Gozzy, it's like you know that Facebook groups are somewhere that you wanted to do what you're doing and you're giving yourself the opportunity to play with it. Yes. And you've kind of got to stay alive to what works, what feels right for you. And I think there's something about a lot of what you're advocating, not just today, but in your book as well, about staying alive to it all. About staying alive to, you know, you've got to tune into whether this is the ego talking or whether this is you talking, and whether that's almost part of the kind of how you tune into the authenticity. And then in terms of which channel works for you, again, it comes back to, well, what feels right for you. And so in many ways, and this isn't undermining what you're saying, I don't think it's kind of like adding to it. It's like, well, it's not a case of one thing is the future, another thing is not. It's kind of like you've got to be the one that ultimately decides that. And that your sense of it for yourself is that Facebook is potentially having its day. And we've got to be aware that there's potentially other places it could go. You're warning us of that.
Platform. I mean, we can't deny it. Like, it is where the majority of digital online, digital culture is. But I do think, there is a shift, and I would say particularly it also depends on who your audience are. Like, like LinkedIn will be a much better place for other people here. You know, I'd say anyone who's got an audience who are in their sort of 20s or under or coming up to 30, they're much more likely to be in Instagram and hanging out there than on Facebook. So, you know, it becomes really personal. And just because I feel Facebook groups have had their day, but maybe that's because they've had their day with me, and I'm seeing them have their day with a lot of people I'm around. But that doesn't mean that that's wrong for you necessarily, if that's where your people really are and you love it. So yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that's almost perfectly timed. So I said we've got half an hour at 7 minutes past 5, and it's now 37 minutes past 5. So beautifully done. Well done, Katie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you all back into breakout groups, and I'm pretty confident this time around that it's going to work better than the last time, because those people whose connections weren't working, I think, have dropped out. Not that I wanted to lose them, but you get what I mean. And what I'm going to ask you to do in your, either in a 2 or 3, depends on who you find yourself in a group with, is just reflect on what are you hearing and what are you taking away for yourself, and kind of what questions have you got left as well. Not necessarily we're going to answer those questions, but basically what are you learning is almost the question I'm asking you all. So I'm going to press the breakout rooms button. Chaos and shoes again. Right. Okay, so let's just make sure. I want to recreate all rooms. Yes, it's all gone chaos. What's going on here? Sorry, talk amongst yourselves. Right. Okay. So I want. How many people have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Me. You don't want me in a room. So I think I want 5 rooms. Recreate all rooms. Yes, right, okay. Let's see. You're going to be in a room, Katie. Again. Okay. That's okay. Great. Okay, go. Ready? Oh, I'm not freaking out anymore for those people listening in on the call, because I know that they're now all in their little breakout groups. But what I am going to do is look at myself for a while. It's all a learning curve. Who will I go and join? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. You asked to join me. You asked for help.
So I can hear Gozi. She can't hear me. So
I'm
guessing she can't hear you. Can you hear her?
Can you speak, Gozi? No, I can't hear you. That's really weird.
Yeah.
Try to ask a question.
Oh, you're back.
You're back.
Speak again, Gozi.
I can't hear.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't. Oh, she can't hear, but we can hear you. Oh, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love the fact in the chat says there's something wrong.
I don't know if you two can hear each other, but I can't hear any of you.
Yeah. Let's see what's going on. Participants.
She said this happened to her last time, so we thought it might be her end. She said, I think it's her end.
I think it's your end. That sounds really rude, doesn't it? Don't turn up ropes.
I'm so sorry, guys.
No, don't be sorry. This is like part of the fun of learning, right?
Type a message.
The thing,
type.
I don't know.
So you can't hear us, Gozi, is that right? No, you can't hear us. Okay, so sent Gozi a private question and chat.
That's what I did.
Well, you can tell me what you still can't hear. Yes. Okay. Got it. Yeah, on it. Yeah, go on. Yeah, do that. Yeah, do that. Yes, yes, Gozzy, do that.
She's typing.
Yeah, I think so. She says, I will type, and I can hear this going on.
I can't. Oh, yeah, I can hear it now.
Yeah. I tell you what's weird on breakout rooms. When everyone else goes off onto the breakout rooms, you're left there on your own going, is it working? Is it not working?
Yeah, everybody will be chatting away, and then you'll be in here with us going, oh, shit, the time's gone.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I am now going to leave this room because she's going to type and you can see what she's typing, right? Okay, because otherwise I've got to just...
We've got a private chat going, so she can type to me.
Perfect. Okay. I'm leaving the room again somehow. How do I leave this room? How do I leave this room? Leave breakout room. Right. All breakout rooms will close in 1 minute. People are joining back again. Hello, Kristen. It's a fun experiment, this whole Zoom thing. Where are you based, Kristen?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, nice. What time of day is it there? Like?
So 10:45 a.m.
Oh, nice. And it's sunny, I'm sensing.
Actually, it's kind of cold today. We've got this weird storm coming through. So I've got like my scarf and my blanket. I didn't grow up here in Phoenix. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. So when I moved, I gave away all my warm weather or my cold weather clothes. So I'm like trying to dig out things to be comfy.
Brilliant. Well, can you mute yourself again? Sorry, I'm loving that conversation, and we need to stop it because everyone's back. Hello, everyone. You're all back again. Yay. So I just want to get a sense of just, sort of 5 so minutes as it were to wrap up the kind of conversation that were. What are the main things you're learning from the call thus far? And what is it you potentially are going to do differently? What is it that's speaking to you is really what I'm asking. And wave or unmute yourself. Yes, Anita.
I will say, do my magic.
Do my magic.
Love my magic. Do my own thing. And the other big takeaway for me is to clear out the noise, because that's all I keep hearing is all the noise about what you should be doing, how you should be doing it, how to sign up clients. And I'm like, oh,
fuck off. I'll say it for you.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. I'm just like, I've unfollowed everybody that's trying to sell me something. I'm like, no.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Yes, Gozzy. I saw that, Rachel. Thank you.
So for me, it's having lots of fun with social media.
Mm-hmm.
Taking it so seriously, finding where my people are and just speaking to them. And the biggest one actually is not worrying about likes, but really focusing on engagement.
Nice. Yeah, Katie, that'll be a yay. Love that. Perfect. Thank you. Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I was saying in the breakout group, it's kind of underlining something rather than learning anything new. But this idea of good intent, going into it with the right intention, and I think, you know, I think marketing's got a bad name for itself. If people think that it's all about manipulation, it shouldn't be. In the same way that sales shouldn't be either. But it's about going to it with the absolutely true intent. You're not there to manipulate someone. You're not there just to sell something. You're just there to have a conversation and be curious and build a relationship.
And I'd add to that, almost like something I've written it down and put a box around it, kind of create something that counts. It's kind of like if you're creating something that counts and sharing it kind of with the intent that I want this, it's almost like I'm gifting the world this thing, as opposed to how can I manipulate people. Yeah. Anything else from anyone else? I want two more. Yes, Kristen.
Yeah, well, so I looked at, okay, you don't want to place ads just on Facebook, right? You want to diversify in other areas, but I didn't look at it, Katie, from the perspective of engagement with your audience. So if we're investing all those eggs in the Facebook basket, if we're just looking at the Facebook ship, if that goes down, how are we engaging with our community? So I'm grateful for those little membership sites that you suggested. I'm going to check them out. That was really valuable to me, so thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's almost like future proofing. It's like, just be aware. Yeah. Okay, one more. I want one more person that hasn't spoken. So and this is like putting pressure on them. Emma, Kelsey, Tracy, Jim, or Peter, or Andy, who we can't see. One of you, go on. What are you learning? Yes, Kelsey.
I think my biggest takeaway, even from the breakout group, if it's not working, don't do it. Don't should all over your. There's so many shoulds. There's so many coaches, coaching coaches to coach coaches to coach coaches to be coaches. There's so much information. It's like the MLM of coaching. The coaching industry is just this big pyramid scheme now, and everybody has a different view, and everybody says what you should be doing. But we've really, especially in the spiritual community that I'm in, we forget to tune into the wisdom that we have inside of ourselves. So if it doesn't feel good, don't do it.
Love that. Yes, Katie. Yes, you're winning your social media advice, Katie. Yes. Love that. I heard, just there's a little thing in the chat as well. Goz has just said, can you send us the membership sites again, please? Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got everyone's email address as well, so I'll send everybody the kind of notes, as it were, including the learning points that Katie I shared earlier on my screen, and the learning points for We Won't Die Wondering as well. So yeah, I'll share that with everyone.
I can do a plug because I wrote a chapter for the new book on membership sites, but it was too heavy to go in the book when the book came together. So I'm doing it on Patreon as bonus content, and you can sign up for as little as $1, and then it's an honesty box. So there you go.
Brilliant. Well, then as to wrap up, if you can, so I'm going to just come to you because obviously I'm going to do my piece in a minute, but obviously believe it or not, that is nearly 2 hours. How can people from this moment onwards get more of you?
Well, there's the new book coming, which I'm literally finished the proof today and is going off to print like over the next week. So that's coming out. That's a really great way. And in that, there's all the ways to contact me. But my website is Social Media for a New Age, but I'm super active on Instagram. That's my jam. So come find me on there. I'm KTK.socialmediaangel.
Great. Is there anywhere out? Anything out? Is that?
Yeah, I am. I'm playing with Patreon. That's as a living room membership platform. I've played with it before. I've never quite got it right. I'm trying something different this time. Actually, from that, because I realise that value is so relative, and we haven't all got time for all of this content all the time. So it's just like, okay, so how could I create something that felt in alignment with me? So yeah, I'm doing that, and that you have to put something in, and I think, yeah, I've started with a minimum of $1. So
great.
That's another place.
And I'll also add, it's because you're clearly not going to plug this yourself, because you're almost reached, that's your end of your sales pitch. You also do provide one-to-one coaching, mentoring.
Yes,
of which I have benefited from as well. And it's very, I mean, it's a deeper dive into everything that you've already been sharing for everyone else's benefits. You do one-to-one, and it's kind of how to be more of yourself and show up online. That's effectively how I experience your coaching and mentoring. So yeah, you do also provide that for people.
I do, thank you.
Yeah, because you clearly weren't going to say it yourself, were you? No.
Oh,
come on, man.
I'm like, what do I do? So yeah, that thing.
Well, just to wrap up my piece then, obviously this has been the first of hopefully many Zoom calls for We Won't Die Wondering, which is my thing. And kind of how you can get more of what I do if you're interested in it at all. So obviously I'm kind of just literally, I'm in the spirit of kind of like I started with, I just didn't want to be here anymore, to fuck, I just want to do everything all the time. Do it all quick. I don't want to do all the social media stuff, but I am kind of, as this kind of journey of life is unfolding for me, and I'm just being very open and honest and sharing stuff. So I send out emails literally, they aren't scheduled in. They're kind of going out roughly once a week, maybe once every 10 days or so. I'm just sharing kind of, these are my reflections on what's working for me and how to not die wondering in life. So because I've got your email addresses, I will be adding you on the mailing list, but I don't want you there if you don't want it. So feel free to unplug yourself. I do these wonders. So this is what I would call a wonder, as in an indoor thing. I also do wonders, outdoor things. But I'm roughly speaking doing one wonder indoors with people meeting up. So if you live near the Bristol area, fantastic. There'll be more of them. And obviously I'm wanting to do these Zoom calls now for those of you that clearly can't make it. I don't know what the next one's going to be on. I'm making it up as I go along. I am totally winging this whole thing. But in terms of like people engaging with it, obviously I'm sharing the content. It's almost like next level down. The free thing is the pay-as-you-go stuff, which is what this is. And then for those people that really commit to want to not die wondering, I'm putting people into groups of cohorts of 8 people. I'm calling it the Wonder Club. It's kind of my new thing. So it's going to be group coaching effectively, where we deep dive on vision, values, purpose, and more importantly, everybody collectively saying, you know what, I want to do this thing, and having the other 7 people in the group saying, yeah, I really want to help you do it too. So kind of where can we go with it? So obviously some of you are coaches, etc. This may not be for you. This may be for you. But that's something I will be sharing more on my content as well. So that's kind of how to get me. And I do one-to-one coaching as well. So without further ado, the last piece of the puzzle is the payment thing. So it's basically all part of what I call the gift economy, or what is known as the gift economy. It's basically suggesting that I'm going to give everything I do away for free, but in return, you consider how much you've enjoyed it and pay me something, or reflect in how much you've enjoyed it in maybe what you give by return. Hence why it's a suggested donation. So I've suggested this call is a £10 donation. So I'm going to copy and paste my PayPal details into the chat. How do I do that? Basically, put it in the chat. Yeah, maybe I do it in the email. Oh, it's opened up another page on here, so it must work as a link.
Do it in the email, Ryan.
Send it to us on email.
Yeah, I will do. I'll send it on email as well. I'll just put it in the chat. Yeah. But basically, it's a suggested donation of £10. If you've really not enjoyed it very much, you think, no, that wasn't worth my time, then feel free to pay nothing at all. It is given for free. Likewise, if you went out for a meal and you went, you know what, this is the best steak I've ever eaten in my life, I want to give a big tip for this, then feel free to give more money, because obviously the more I kind of go, yay, we're getting love for this, then I want to do more of it, right? So that's the whole idea. So I'll leave it there. I will send that in the email afterwards as well. And I'm 2 minutes short, no, 4 minutes short. Okay, so in our last 4 minutes, is there anything, go on.
I was wondering about sharing a poem, but I was going to share one of the old ones. I think I might share one of the new ones. So I just need to open, because I shut down all my documents when we were when we were on. So I need to just open this up. And then I need to just work out which one. So talk amongst yourselves for a second. I'll literally be, I'm just trying to. Was the one that spoke to you, Ryan, from the book?
Yeah, but I didn't write down in the poems. I just wrote down my notes. I wrote down the things that spoke to me at a level which was kind of like what would be right for this call.
That's okay.
Well, one of the ones I think might be worth highlighting if you're not thinking of this one is it wasn't a poem per se, but I think it's a good kind of like wrap up if you wanted. Is count your blessings, not your followers. The only like that matters is your own. Your time is not determined by numbers. Happiness is not an algorithm. Yeah, that was the one I took out. I just thought, yeah, that. It's not about, if you're chasing yourself through social media, you've got that all wrong. Stop immediately.
So this was one, this is called Love, Light and Action. So it's a little bit cosmic, but it'll run. As I struggle to be at peace with Facebook, because I cannot shake the feeling that Zuck is a crook, it's been more difficult for me to see the positive side. I forget how amazing it is that we can communicate worldwide. The internet, our cyberspace, where we can connect heart to heart with love and grace. It is up to us to be the change we want to see on this planet, one by one, together, letting the unfoldment be organic, using technology to support us naturally, not letting it become a global tragedy. We need to invest in our digital well-being, reduce distractions, the addictions, and all the bad that we're seeing. Booming the web up with our loving, energetic light, using it consciously, a place where we treat each other right. Creating social media for a new age, where we're not prisoners of Facebook's gilded cage. Instead, we are the leaders, sacred and true, with social media a tool that connects me and you.
Yay! Love that. Yeah, look at that. Round of applause, muted applause. Fantastic. Well, with that, I'll just say thank you very much, Katie. It's been fantastic. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Yeah,
yay.
thank you everyone. It was lovely to meet you all.
Yay. And you can either, I'm going to stay on this space with you, Katie, and everyone else can bugger off, or you and I can chat later.
Cool.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
I am going to stay here and see if everyone disappears.
Aww.
And it's just Andy there. Does Andy know he's still there?
Probably. Oh yeah, he's saying cheers all.
Oh, is he? Oh, well, perfect. Good. But you're still there.
Oh, that's nice. They've asked for my PayPal as well.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Cool.
So.
Oh, I've got little red cheeks.
Yay. Yeah. A few little teething issues we went through just in terms of figuring out the technology, but that was fine.
I don't think anyone minded.
I don't think anyone. No, I'm not meaning that like I'm concerned about it. I'm really, that's my way of saying I think that went brilliantly well.
Yeah.
And all that was bothering me was a few little teething issues. So
good.
Yeah, I'm going to stop the recording so we don't suddenly say something that was. No, you can't listen into this, general public. No.